Joseph again found favor with Potiphar. Potiphar was over Pharaoh's prison. And so Joseph was actually given the responsibility as a kind of a superintendent or supervisory administrator of the prison. And which certainly better than death. But it was a type of thing that even though he had a privileged position, he was still in prison. And Egyptian prisons are not fun. I've been in Egyptian prison 3 times during our 34 years of ministry there. And it makes the American jail seem like the Hilton. I mean, it's a box that's about 10 or 12 feet square, made out of steel, and the hot sun just absolutely melts you. The door has a little slit at the very top of it where you get your air. And there's a dirt floor. You sleep on the dirt if that's all you have. And so I can imagine that the prisons then was not much better than what they are now. And the president that's in Egypt today, that type of thing would not have happened. That happened to me, but under the past administration, anything that had to do with doing anything in the name of Jesus was blasphemy, and it was worthy of imprisonment. And so I can just imagine the hopelessness that Joseph must have felt on every day of his life. He looked around at this prison cell that if it's like it was when I was there, was absolutely horrifying. And to know that there's no way out. But yet, not a single time do we read that God gave him encouragement. That God confirmed to him that I'm with you. But one thing that we know ourselves is that he will never leave us, nor will he ever forsake us. Hebrews tells us that. And so, even in your own life, at a time that you feel like you're boxed into a prison, there's no way out. All you have in your life from sun up to sundown is nothing but hot, burning reality that is meant to do one thing to you, to destroy you and to beat you down. You can always know this, that your Jesus will never leave you. You may not hear from him. You may not hear that confirmation in your heart, but you can know 100% that I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I do know this, that my Jesus knows I'm here. And he will never leave me. And he will never, under any circumstances, forsake me. Finally, after 4 years, on May the 10th, which was the birthday of Pharaoh, they discovered that the baker, Pharaoh's personal baker, his name was Samaiah, and his personal cupbearer. Now, a cupbearer is someone who tastes the food or tastes the drink to make sure that Pharaoh is not getting poisoned. And his name was Fatihah, and both of them were put in prison. And they were put in prison for trying to assassinate Pharaoh. Now this Pharaoh was he was a real scoundrel. He was not a good guy. And so these two guys were put in prison because they were accused of trying to assassinate Pharaoh. Well, they had dreams. They were in there for quite a while. On May the 10th of the following year, both of them had dreams. And Joseph was wondering why they seemed so upset, because it really bothered them that they didn't know what the dreams meant. And Joseph said, "Well, tell me what the dream was." And so the the cupbearer told him his dream, and then Joseph said, "Well, what that means is that 3 days from now, you're going to be forgiven, and you're going to be released, and you're going to be restored back to your position." And well, the baker said, "Hey, that sounds pretty good. Let me tell you my dream, and you tell me what it means." And then Joseph was quite honest when he said, "Well, for you, in 3 days, you're going to be found guilty of trying to assassinate the Pharaoh, and you will hang. In this courtyard, you will hang." That's exactly what happened. And when the cupbearer, the official taster, was restored to his position, Joseph says, "Don't forget about me. Just remember what I did for you." Well, he did. He forgot. Year 1847, or actually 1845 BC, Pharaoh himself had dreams. The first dream he had is he was down by a meadow near Goshen. And Goshen, well, in Georgia we pronounce that Goshen, but it's this area right in here, a very fertile area. And we have the farm that we have for the widows. We have a 10-acre farm. It's in Goshen, and have tremendous crops. But anyway, the Pharaoh was there, and he dreamed that there were 7 fat cows came up out of the river and started grazing in the meadow, and it's followed by 7 real skinny, scrawny, diseased cows. And then all of a sudden, these diseased cows began to eat the fat cows and ate them up. Well, he woke up, confused, went back to sleep, had another dream. He dreamed that there was a stalk of corn that had 8 ears or 7 ears of corn on the stalk, which is quite phenomenal. And then he said that it was good and healthy. And then there was another stalk that had 7 ears that was blasted by the east wind, and it was all scrawny and it dried up. And he said that those bad ears ate up the other ears. And he was very confused. And so he sent out a decree throughout all of the colonies of Egypt, which included not only Egypt here, but Cana was a colony at that time, back over into Arabia, Medina, even down as far as present-day Kenya, all belonged to Egypt. So he sent out this decree for all the wise men and dream translators and all of these smart guys to come to Luxor, or not Luxor, Thebes, present-day Luxor, which is right there. And that's where the Pharaoh's palace was. And so 3,181 wise men, dream translators, and so forth from all over the Egyptian world was brought to Thebes over the next 4 months. And it was there that he told them the dreams and demanded a translation and interpretation. They were not able to do it. So he sent a decree and said, every one of you are going to die. Every one of you will be drowned in the Nile River with a stone around your neck. every one of you. But this cupbearer spoke up. And he says, Pharaoh, you remember when I was in prison, there was a man there that interpreted a dream that I had, and he can do the same for you. And so Pharaoh really probably didn't know what to think about this, because the same man that he was talking about was the man that the reason why he was in prison to begin with is because he mocked his gods and his decrees, this Joseph. Now, Joseph, as the head of the administration of the prison, it was his responsibility to pick one prisoner a day, or one prisoner a year, to sacrifice to Seth. Now, the Egyptians did not have human sacrifices except sacrifice to Seth. And this sacrifice to Seth was to show Seth that they still acknowledged him as a god, and that it would placate his anger against anything that Pharaoh might do. And so on July the 1st of each year, there was a person who was taken from Pharaoh's prison in On and taken 430 miles south to Thebes. And there he was sacrificed to Seth. He was chosen, and Joseph is the one as the administrator who had to choose the guy to be sacrificed. They shaved his body of all hair, washed him in rose water and milk, and did all these ritual type things. And then by the time he got down to Thebes, he'd been treated as royalty, but he was sacrificed. So when Pharaoh makes a proclamation or a summons, you do it. He doesn't have to explain why. Well, it was about the same time that Joseph every year had to choose someone to go to Thebes to be sacrificed to Seth. And so now Joseph got his summons. And the first thing they did with Joseph is that they shaved all the hair off his body, bathed him in rose water and milk, dressed him in royal apparel, and didn't say a single thing to him on why he was being summoned. And so you can imagine what went through Joseph's mind that 430-mile journey up the Nile River. But when he got there, then it was all different, because Pharaoh immediately told him the dreams, and Joseph immediately, it didn't take him overnight, didn't take him hours. Immediately, he gave the translation and the interpretation, saying, Pharaoh, you dreamed it twice because God wanted you to know that this is going to happen. No doubt it will happen. You'll have 7 years of good, the best harvest that you have ever had, that Egypt has ever had. And then next week we'll get into all that. You'll be absolutely astounded at what all Joseph did. And so he said that for 7 years, there'll be crops bigger than anything you could ever imagine. Because after that are going to be 7 years of drought. It is going to be greater than anything you can possibly imagine. Well, Pharaoh didn't know what a drought was, because at that time, the Sahara Desert didn't exist. That didn't exist until the 7 years of bad. At that time, all the way from the Arabian Sea to the Atlantic Ocean was lush farmlands and just waves and waves of green grass and cultivated. It was the breadbasket of the world. As a matter of fact, turn with me to Genesis 13. Right now, Egypt is 98% desert. But at this time it was not. And Genesis 13:10 says this, "And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt." We've been ministering in Egypt for 34 years, and I can assure you it's not like a Garden of Eden. It is truly 98% desert, and it is hot, hot, hot. One of the last times I was there, it was 45 degrees. Fahrenheit, 122 degrees. And it was hot, hot, hot. And so this Pharaoh had never seen a drought. This was Garden of Eden territory until the drought hit. But Pharaoh believed it. And not only did he believe it, he questioned Joseph. Okay, well, what do we do? And Joseph told him what needed to be done. And he said, you need to hire somebody that's wise and can lead you through all of this, prepare this people for what's going to be coming. And then Pharaoh says, is there anyone any wiser than you? And on that day, June the 10th, 1845 BC, Joseph became the prime minister of Egypt, the first prime minister in more than 460 years. And there was not another prime minister for the next 530. And so Joseph was exalted from slave to prime minister in one day. Primarily because Pharaoh believed what this man was telling him, even though he had no reason to do so. But this God, who had been with Joseph all this time, he made himself real in the life of Joseph. Some of you may be the only Bible that people see. You may be the only Jesus that they ever come in contact with. And so make sure in your daily life that the spirit of Joseph is within you also. And so Joseph, his name is Menenhapet in the Egyptian language. You can go to Egypt today and you can see statues of him. You can read hieroglyphics, if you can read hieroglyphics, of some of the deeds that Joseph did on the side of the temples of Karnak, the side of the temples of Dozar and Jelakan. It's fascinating to stand there and see for yourself my Bible come alive on the walls of ancient Egypt. And that the God that he served is still very much alive and well today.
My name is Brad Charles. I'm the president of the Cubit Foundation. At the Cubit Foundation, we primarily focus on helping widows and orphans all around the world. I'm a carpenter. I know how to build things out of wood. I like organizing trips that get people out of their normal life and bring them to somewhere that's completely foreign to them, and they actually produce a project, like they build something with their own hands. I started traveling and serving in this way when I was around 13, and from that time, I've always had a soft spot for Mexico.
My name is Micah Carter. I'm the director of Big Heart Orphanage here in Reynosa, along with my wife Jennifer and my sister Opal. We've been directors here for 2.5 years. At Big Heart Orphanage, we focus on children and their lives and to give them a better future.
The difference that Big Heart has made in this community, in my mind's eye, is saving kids from poverty. Big Heart puts these kids through school, gives them a place to live, provides all their medical needs. I mean, you name it, they do it.
My parents came to Mexico when I was 3 years old. I grew up in the mission field with my parents, and so Mexico is home to me.
We're great friends, and I trust Micah. I admire his drive. I admire his follow through, and he puts up with me and all my stuff.
Brad, Charles, and the Cute Foundation have been a huge blessing to Big Heart. We really enjoyed working alongside each other. They've just been a huge help in the way that they come, they serve, and we've been able to build amazing relationships through the time that they've been here. One of the big focuses that we've always had with our kids is knowing the fact that education plays a huge part in this country, and unfortunately the local schools don't have the best education. So we felt upon our hearts that we needed to build a school for our kids and do a homeschooling style, but because of the need in our community, we were able to expand that and then open it up as a private school. The school's name is Regents. We have now 500 kids coming from kindergarten all the way up through high school.
At the Cuba Foundation, we have a great opportunity to start a carpentry class and welding metal fabrication classes involving a Regents school. So the next step with the Cuba Foundation with Big Heart and Regents School is to start these two classes and build onto that, and then these classes are going to train kids to do something with their life after they get out of school.
I'm really excited about the next steps for Regents. We're looking at now teaming up with Cuba Foundation and them being able to show a trade to these kids that really broadens the effect that we'll be able to have on this community and on our students.
I'm going to be teaching the carpentry classes for Regents, but my friend Ed, he's going to be teaching welding. I've traveled all around the world with Ed, from Egypt to Colombia, Mexico. He's a great guy, he's got a great heart. He'll do anything for these kids.
Oh, we don't have that much time for me to tell you what I think about Brad Charles. My name is Ed Tanner. I'm a welder fabricator of metals, welding and cutting and grinding metals. I've been doing this for 44 years. Brad has turned out to be a positive influence in my life. Brad has gotten stuff out of me that I would have never tried by myself. When I first came to Big Heart and Brad asked me to come and go on a mission trip, I had no idea what a mission trip could be taken to do. And it gave me a very good feeling about the direction of my life was going.
What I would personally like to do with every kid that takes a class is, teach them a trade, teach them when they get out of school that they can actually do something with their own hands and make money at it and raise a family and get a wife, have some kids, even build a house if they wanted to. So I want to invest that time and time and money into these kids because I do care about them and I want them to have a better life.
The area of Reynosa where Big Heart and Regents is located is a low to middle class, and surrounding us are multiple factories, and that is a common job for somebody in this area. It's a reliable job, it's not the best paying job, where if someone has an education or has a trade, will then be able to have opportunities to be an entrepreneur, start their own business, and start doing things on their own where they would have more of an effect on their community too, where they're pouring into their community and not just working at a factory.
There will always be welding fabrication in this world today. A good welder can find a job anywhere they want to go.
The reason why it's so important that kids have a trade when they get out of high school if they're not going to college. I mean, they get pulled into drugs, they get pulled into being in gangs, they get pulled into prostitution. I mean, you name it. They need a direction, and we're here to help direct them into their next path.
And starting this new adventure, I would call it, with adding these trades to the school, we do have some work that needs to be done on the facilities that we're going to be using for these trade classes.
We have to buy tools, and we have to fill the shop with tools and safety gear and everything that goes along with the shop for 15 kids. Not just 1 year, but year after year after year after year.
It's going to take welding machines, grinders, drill presses. It's going to take cut and torch outfits. It's going to take safety equipment. So we got a long way to go, but we're off to a good start. And I see a lot of potential right here where we're at.
Big Heart Orphanage and Regents is 100% funded, primarily by individuals that have come and been a part of what we're doing here and have seen the need and have decided to support what goes on here 24/7 all year long.
I'm not going to get paid to do these classes. I don't take a salary from Cuba Foundation.
What do I want out of this? To feel good about my life, to feel good about what I've done, to share the positive things and the good things in my life, to maybe pass it on to another generation.
I mean, it'd be great, an explosion of kids interested in learning these trades.
Anywhere that we can have a positive influence on the next generation, it's an investment into the future. And that's what I'm excited about as far as being a part of a positive investment in people's lives.
I really want to see the Cuba Foundation doing these carpentry classes, doing these welding classes, but I'm really going to need your help. You can spend money on all kinds of things in your whole life. Why not invest in a kid, teaching them a trade, and helping them when they graduate high school to get out and join the workforce and start a great family? And, you know, by helping out with this project, it's going to do it. It's going to impact somebody's life for the rest of their life.